Hello, everyone, and good evening. I'm Don Arleth, and welcome to Flash News. In his second impeachment trial, former President Donald Trump was acquitted. The vote, 57 for and 43 against. However, the threshold of 67 votes in the Senate was not met. All of the Democrats, independents, as well as 7 Republican senators voted for impeachment. In a statement released by Donald Trump, he thanked his lawyers and senators who supported him. He also called the impeachment trial the biggest witch hunt in the history of the country, the likes of which no president has ever seen, and said his opponents can't forget the record 75 million Americans who voted for him just months ago.
Yeas are 57. The nays are 43. Two-thirds of the senators present not having voted guilty. The Senate judges that the respondent, Donald John Trump, former President of the United States, is not guilty as charged in the article of impeachment.
The House of Representatives has accused Donald Trump of inciting an uprising against the government during his supporters' attack on the Capitol on the 6th of January. The defense argued that the former president was not responsible for the attack and that the combative language he used during a speech preceding the attack on the Capitol was a figure of speech. They also argued that the impeachment itself was unconstitutional. A majority of at least two-thirds of 100 senators was needed to find the Republican president guilty. In practice, this meant that at least 17 Republican senators would have to join the Democrats.
A strong and important voice is coming from the U.S. Congress. Democrats and Republicans are jointly calling on President Joe Biden to continue to support the 3 Cs initiative. A total of 14 congressmen have signed an open letter to President Biden.
Congressmen from both parties in a special letter encouraged President Joe Biden to continue his support for the 3 Cs initiative. The congressional letter to President Joe Biden reads, "As strong supporters of a transatlantic relation and an undivided, free, prosperous and secure Europe, we respectfully urge you to maintain your strong support for the 3 Cs initiative." The signatories of the letter underline the strategic importance of the initiative, which brings together 12 EU countries located between the Baltic, Adriatic and Black Seas, which want to cooperate primarily in the economic field. There are many indications that the priorities that are common for Poland and the United States will not change after the change in the seat at the White House. One of them is military cooperation. The new head of the Pentagon assured the Minister of National Defense about further strengthening of the eastern flank. All the accomplishments we made over the past years have been confirmed. The conversation took place on the initiative of my American counterpart. We will make preparations for up to 20,000 American troops to stay in our country. Joint maneuvers and good cooperation ensure the security of Poland and the countries in the region.
Now for some news from Poland. Icebreakers have started crushing ice on the Vistula River. The water levels of the river have exceeded the alarm stage in many places after a blockage was formed at the section near Płock. The operation will likely take several weeks.
6 days after the flood alert was issued for Płock, icebreakers set off on the Vistula. This was not possible earlier due to severe frosts. It will enable us to remove the ice effectively so as it doesn't lump together and can flow uninhibited. The ice-crushing operation may take several weeks. The Vistula is frozen over for about 90 kilometers. In Płock, the river level has already dropped by 20 centimeters, in Kępa Polska by 15, but the flood alert is still maintained in 7 municipalities along the Vistula. As of today, we have procured 10,000 sacks with piles of sand staggered every few hundred meters. Local flooding in Płock has alerted the flood control services in Pomerania. Icebreakers stationed at the Przegalina Lock are on this around-the-clock standby. The threat may come within a very short time if a blockage starts to form at the mouth of the Vistula and is not cleared in time. The highest alert level on the Vistula has been announced for the area around Wyszogród.
This is the first weekend in Poland with somewhat less stringent restrictions in a long time. Hotels, cinemas, theaters, and ski slopes are open, but they must operate under extra sanitary rules.
Podhale is experiencing an onslaught of tourists on the first weekend after the loosening of restrictions. Slopes and lifts are full of skiers. Fantastic, this is all we need after the break. Ski resorts were opened upon condition of sanitary regime. And this was clearly lacking last night in Krupówki. During the day, the Zakopane police questioned over 150 people and intervened 60 times. The relaxing of restrictions is to last for the next 2 weeks, after which the government will decide whether or not to tighten them again. At any moment there may be a turnaround with infections going up sharply, so never enough warnings and appeals. Please be responsible. Hotels have also been open since Friday, also under a sanitary regime. The phones have started ringing. It's clear that the guests are already looking forward to the time when they could come relax and unwind. Swimming pools are open too. Philharmonic halls, theatres and cinemas have opened with masks mandatory and half of the seats vacant. Restaurants, cafes, gyms and secondary schools remain closed.
More than 168 million injections have been administered in 77 countries around the world as part of the coronavirus vaccination campaign. Around 5.8 million doses of the vaccine are administered every day. In Poland, the percentage of vaccinated people is one of the highest in the entire European Union. 4.6% of Poles have received at least one injection.
The highest number of vaccines, over 50 million, has been administered in the United States. More than 11% of the population there have received at least one dose. In China, 40 million doses were given, 20 million across the European Union and 14.5 million in the UK. Meanwhile, French health authorities have issued new recommendations on vaccination for those recovering from COVID-19. They have recommended that only one dose of the vaccine be given to people who have already had the infection. According to experts, such people have already acquired immunological memory, and one dose of the vaccine serves as a refresher to the immune system. The exception to the new rule are immunocompromised people who should receive 2 doses.
Almost 10 years to the date since the devastating earthquake that rocked Japan, another earthquake with a magnitude of 7.1 hit the same area. At least 30 people were injured, several buildings and power lines were damaged, 950,000 households are without electricity, and train service disruptions have been reported.
The epicenter of the quake was to the northeast of Tokyo. The tremor occurred on the ocean floor at a depth of 54 kilometers. The tremor was felt in the Japanese capital. Objects were shaking and falling in apartments. No damage was found at the Fukushima nuclear plant, which was destroyed by the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, or rather nearby power plants. Snow Armageddon in the Russian capital Moscow. Dozens of delayed flights and paralysis in the streets are the result of heavy snowfall. More than half a meter of snow lay on the roads on Saturday morning, paralyzing traffic in the city. 60,000 people and 13,500 snowplows were deployed to clear the streets and otherwise remove the effects of the heavy snowfall. It had not been a winter like this in the Netherlands for a long time. The freezing temperatures drove the Dutch, who are known for their love of ice skating, out of their homes and into the frozen canals, ponds and lakes, which looked like under siege. But the crowds meant that not everywhere the ice could support their weight. This is what happened on one of the ponds of The Hague. Fortunately, no one was hurt.
A salary in the neighborhood of 30,000 zlotys a month and a select team of co-workers. Commuting to work can be as spectacular as returning, and you even get a company uniform. For the first time in over a decade, the European Space Agency is hiring astronauts.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Firstly, no traffic jams when commuting to work.
A few meters now separating.
Secondly, the office is extremely sterile and meetings with colleagues often take place in an open space. Thirdly and finally, at work you can sleep, throw things, pour water on a cloth and get paid for it because it's one of your employees' duties. At the moment, the possibilities to apply for this profession have increased because specialists in various fields are needed, like mechanical and electronic engineers, electrical engineers and computer scientists. The European Space Agency has opened recruitment for astronauts for the first time in 11 years. Recruitment will begin on the 31st of March. Applications will be accepted for 8 weeks. A 6-stage qualification process will then begin. The candidates will be tested for psychological and motor aptitude, ability to acquire new knowledge and fitness for functioning in teams, in confined spaces and on limited surfaces. The new program of the agency is mainly international cooperation on space missions, which are to be launched in the next decade. Here is an important piece of information. A potential candidate must declare availability for business trips, for example, to the moon.
And that's it for tonight. Enjoy what's left of the weekend, and we'll see you next time. Good night.